The autumn in Boston had brought vibrant colors to the street trees. Under the natural light streaming through the high ceiling of the museum, Evelyn Kennedy was making final adjustments to the placement of paintings for the new exhibition. The way her delicate fingertips adjusted the angle of the frame spoke of her confident aesthetic eye, gained from 15 years of experience as a curator. "Perfect," she whispered softly. With just 3 days until the opening of the contemporary art exhibition she had been preparing for months, everything was going according to plan. Her smartphone rang, displaying her husband's smiling face. "Robert," Evelyn answered with a smile. "Hey, I think I can get home early today. I should make it to Amy's dance recital." Evelyn could tell that despite the weariness in Robert's voice, he was making an effort to sound cheerful. His real estate development company was in the final stages of a major project, and for the past few weeks, he had been working from early morning until late at night. "That's wonderful. Amy will be delighted," Evelyn replied. After hanging up, she couldn't help but sigh. Robert had changed recently. There was a distance between them that couldn't be explained by his busy work schedule alone. A faint scent of perfume, unexplained late returns home, and the way he never let go of his cell phone. Evelyn shook her head as if to dismiss her worries. She told herself it was just her imagination. That night, the three of them spent family time together for the first time in a while. Amy's dance recital had been successful, and her eyes were shining with excitement. At 14, their daughter had inherited Evelyn's artistic sensibility and Robert's sharp intellect, growing into a sensitive and observant young woman. "Dad, you've been different lately," Amy suddenly said during dinner at the dining table. Evelyn tried to signal her to stop, but Amy continued, "You always seem to be lost in thought. Is there something you can't tell us?" Robert put down his fork and looked straight into his daughter's eyes. "It's work, Amy. An important project is coming to an end. Things will get back to normal when it's over." He smiled reassuringly, but his smile seemed somehow empty. That night, as Evelyn lay in bed next to Robert, she prayed that everything would return to normal. After confirming that his breathing had become regular and that he had fallen asleep, Evelyn quietly got up and stood by the window. The moonlight made Boston's night scenery shimmer with silver. She wished that this peaceful everyday life would continue. The next afternoon, in the middle of a meeting at the museum, Evelyn's cell phone rang. It was from an unknown number. After a moment's hesitation, thinking it might be an important call, she left the room to answer. "Mrs. Kennedy. This is the emergency department of Boston Memorial Hospital," a calm male voice announced. "Your husband, Robert Kennedy, has been in a traffic accident and is currently receiving treatment." Evelyn's knees went weak. She leaned against the wall in the hallway, barely able to stand. "What's his condition?" Her voice was trembling so much she hardly recognized it. "We'll discuss the details at the hospital. Please come as soon as possible." Evelyn immediately called Amy's school and briefly explained the situation. "Mom's coming to get you right now. We'll go to the hospital together," she told her daughter. Though she tried to keep her voice steady, she couldn't hide the trembling. After picking up Amy in front of the high school, they headed to the hospital by taxi. The car was filled with a heavy silence. Amy's small hand clutched Evelyn's tightly. "Dad's going to be okay, right?" the girl whispered. Evelyn couldn't answer and just squeezed her daughter's hand. Upon arriving at the hospital, she gave their name at the emergency department reception. A nurse appeared immediately and guided them to a small consultation room. "Dr. Clark will be here shortly to explain the situation," she said before leaving the room. Amy clung to Evelyn's arm and said in a trembling voice, "I'm scared, Mom." Evelyn embraced her daughter and said bravely, "It's going to be all right. Dad is strong." A few minutes later, a middle-aged male doctor in a white coat entered. His expression was grave, and Evelyn's heart raced. "Mrs. Kennedy, there's something I need to tell you," the doctor began quietly. "Your husband is currently in the ICU. He has multiple injuries and a head contusion, with the possibility of internal bleeding. Evelyn was at a loss for words. She just listened to the doctor's words in a daze. We're preparing for emergency surgery now. His condition is stable, but the next 24 hours will be critical, the doctor continued. According to the police, his car crashed into a guardrail on the highway. It appears he was alone in the vehicle. Can we see him? Evelyn finally managed to ask. Briefly before the surgery, the doctor nodded. However, he's unconscious. Evelyn and Amy were led to the ICU by the doctor. As they walked down the white corridor, Evelyn was desperately trying to accept reality. Just a few hours ago, she had thought her life was perfect, but now everything was falling apart. When the ICU doors opened, they were greeted by the sound of machines and the smell of antiseptic. Robert, lying on the central bed, bore no resemblance to her energetic husband. Half of his face was covered with bandages, and multiple tubes extended from his body. Amy let out a small cry and began trembling in Evelyn's arms. Supporting her daughter, Evelyn approached Robert's bed. She took his cold hand and whispered, "We're here. We love you." The silence in the ICU was interrupted only occasionally by the electronic beeps of the machines. Evelyn tried to take her daughter to the waiting room to let her rest a bit, but Amy stubbornly refused to leave her father's side. "I want to stay with Dad," she said in a small but determined voice. Evelyn had no energy to argue and simply nodded. The surgery lasted 3 hours. During that time, Evelyn desperately tried to maintain her composure. She contacted Robert's company to explain the situation. His secretary Janet answered the phone. "What? A traffic accident?" Janet's voice contained obvious surprise. "But Mr. Kennedy canceled his internal meeting today. He said he had personal business." Anxiety spread through Evelyn's chest. Robert had said he had an important meeting today. What time did he cancel? "In the morning. Around 10, I think." Evelyn put her hand to her forehead. 10 o'clock. She had been in a meeting at the museum at that time. "Do you know what time the accident happened?" "According to the police, it was around 2 p.m., Janet said. "Mrs. Kennedy, is there anything I can do to help?" "Yes, no, it's all right. Thank you." Evelyn couldn't hide her distress. Just after 3 p.m., Dr. Lin, the surgeon, came out of the operating room. His expression suggested the news wasn't good. "The surgery was successful," he said. "We've stopped the internal bleeding and fixed the fractured areas. However, we're concerned about the swelling in his brain from the head injury." "Is he conscious?" Evelyn's voice was trembling. "Not yet. The next 48 hours will be critical," the doctor said quietly. "His body has suffered a significant shock. Recovery will take time." Amy squeezed her mother's hand and whispered, "Dad, wake up." While the nurses were preparing to move Robert back to the ICU, Evelyn received a call from the police. The officer who had arrived at the accident scene wanted to speak with her. "Mrs. Kennedy, do you have a moment?" A tall police officer approached her in the hospital lobby. "Detective Reed." Evelyn left Amy in the ICU waiting room and decided to speak with the officer a short distance away. "Have you found out anything?" "Judging from the accident scene, he appears to have been driving at considerable speed," Detective Reed said, looking at his notebook. "There's almost no trace of braking, and it seems he lost control on a sharp curve." "My husband is a careful driver," Evelyn shook her head. "Is there anything else?" "This was found in the car." The officer produced a clear evidence bag. Inside was a woman's scarf. It was a pale pink silk with the small initials, RM, embroidered in one corner. Evelyn froze. She didn't recognize the scarf. This isn't mine." Detective Reed nodded quietly. "I understand. I'll contact you if we learn anything else." He handed her a card. Please call me if you think of anything relevant. Evelyn returned to the ICU in a daze. When she found Amy in the waiting room, she noticed tension in her daughter's expression. What's wrong? Amy started to speak, then closed her mouth. Nothing, she looked away. How's Dad? No change. Evelyn sat down next to her daughter and put her arm around her shoulders. Amy, if something's bothering you, will you tell Mom? Amy was silent for a long time. Then in a small voice, she said, just now, someone I don't know came to look at Dad's room. Not a nurse. No, Amy shook her head. A woman. A beautiful woman. But when she saw me, she disappeared right away. A chill ran down Evelyn's spine. The scarf Detective Reed had shown her flashed in her mind. What did she look like? Any features? Long brown hair, wearing expensive-looking clothes, Amy said. And also... She hesitated. She seemed to be holding a photo of Dad. Evelyn stood up and headed to the nurse's station. Excuse me, was the woman who just came to look at my husband's room a staff member? The attending nurse shook her head. I haven't received any reports. There shouldn't be any visitors besides family yet. Despite her growing anxiety, Evelyn smiled at Amy. It must be some mistake. She tried to reassure her daughter, but her own uneasiness only grew. That night, Evelyn spent the night by her husband's side, taking short naps in the small ICU chair. Amy had been picked up by Evelyn's sister Martha to stay with her temporarily. Before leaving, Amy clung to her mother. Mom, be careful. That woman might come back. Don't worry, Evelyn kissed her daughter's cheek. I'll see you tomorrow. After midnight, Robert's cell phone rang. It had been returned with his belongings by the police. Evelyn picked it up and looked at the screen. It displayed unknown. She pressed the answer button but quickly changed her mind and hung up. The screen was locked and required a passcode. Evelyn didn't know her husband's passcode. She should have known it before, but Robert had said he changed it a few months ago for security reasons. She hadn't thought anything of it at the time, but now it seemed strange. The next morning, Evelyn woke up to find Michael, Robert's colleague, visiting the hospital. He had worked with Robert for over 10 years and was also a friend. How is he? Any changes? Michael asked worriedly. He's still unconscious, Evelyn answered with a tired expression. Michael, do you think Robert has changed recently? Michael thought for a moment. Actually, he has been acting a bit strange these past few weeks. Suddenly canceling important project meetings, increasing unexplained absences. Absences? Yes, errands not related to work. He was always vague about them, Michael continued. I thought maybe he was helping with the museum exhibition. Evelyn couldn't hide her shock. No, nothing like that. Michael awkwardly cleared his throat. There's something else. I'm not sure if I should mention this. Please tell me anything, Evelyn was desperate. Last week, flowers were delivered to Robert's desk. The card only had an R written on it, Michael said apologetically. Everyone joked that he might have a secret admirer. The scarf with the initials RM embroidered on it flashed in Evelyn's mind. She was suddenly overcome with a terrible feeling. After Michael left, Evelyn picked up Robert's cell phone again. She tried various passcodes, but none worked. Exhausted, she collapsed into a chair. Over the past few hours, a fear had begun to envelop her that her 15 years of marriage might have been a lie. In the afternoon, Amy returned to the hospital. She was unusually restless, constantly looking around the hallway. Did that woman come back? She asked in a low voice. No, Evelyn answered. Amy, do you know something about that person? Amy was silent for a long time. Show me Dad's cell phone, she suddenly said. I don't know the passcode. Amy hesitated, then quietly said, try 0813. Evelyn looked at her daughter in surprise. How do you? August 13th, Amy said. I saw Dad enter it once. With trembling hands, Evelyn entered 0813. The screen unlocked, displaying the home screen. It wasn't their wedding anniversary, or any family birthday, or any date that had meaning to her. Why this date? Evelyn asked her daughter. Amy fell silent again. Her eyes reflected the struggle of knowing something she couldn't say. Just then, an ICU nurse hurried over. Mrs. Kennedy, we've detected changes in your husband's brain waves. He might be regaining consciousness. Evelyn and Amy rushed to Robert's bedside. His fingers moved slightly, and his eyelids trembled. Doctors gathered around, checking the monitors. His responses are improving, Dr. Lin said. This is a good sign. A mixture of hope and fear spread through Evelyn's chest. She took Robert's hand and whispered, "Come back to us." At that moment, Amy's expression changed. She stared at the entrance to the room, her face turning pale. When Evelyn turned around, she saw a woman with long brown hair standing in the hallway. When the woman's eyes met Evelyn's, instead of disappearing, she slowly approached the room. Amy, go wait in the waiting room with Aunt Martha, Evelyn said quietly. No, Mom. Amy desperately pulled at her mother's arm. Stay away from that woman. The woman entered the room. Her expression showed a strange determination. You must be Evelyn, she said quietly. I'm Rebecca Morrison. The embroidered RM flashed in Evelyn's mind. I need to talk to you, Rebecca continued. About Robert, and about the accident. You are. Evelyn was at a loss for words. Suddenly, the machines in the room began to sound warnings. All three women looked toward Robert. His fingers were moving, and his eyelids were trembling. Get out! Amy shouted. Don't hurt my dad. Rebecca looked at Robert for a moment, and as if making a decision, approached his bed. Her hand reached into the pocket of her hospital gown. Stop! Evelyn screamed and lunged at Rebecca. The two women struggled, and a small glass vial fell from Rebecca's hand. Nurse! Security! Evelyn called out. Amy stood protectively in front of her mother, shouting, Mom, get away from her, while frantically pressing the nurse call button. Within seconds, two nurses and a security guard rushed into the room. In the confusion, Rebecca tried to escape into the hallway. Stop that woman. She tried to harm my husband. Evelyn shouted. The security guard apprehended Rebecca as she ran down the hallway. She didn't resist but rather dropped her shoulders as if in resignation. Amy clung to her mother, crying. I was so scared. It's okay now, Evelyn said, embracing her daughter. Her heart was pounding fiercely. What was in that vial? One of the nurses carefully picked up the fallen vial. I'll call the doctor. This needs to be tested. As the commotion continued, Evelyn was called by the security guard. Mrs. Kennedy, we're holding this woman until the police arrive, but she says she has something to tell you. Evelyn told Amy, wait here, and stepped into the hallway. Rebecca was sitting in a small waiting room with two security guards beside her. 5 minutes only, the guard said. The police will be here soon. Evelyn stood before Rebecca on shaking legs. Why? This was her only question. Rebecca looked up at her with a tired expression. I wasn't trying to kill your husband, she said quietly. I just wanted a chance to talk to him. And the vial? Sleeping pills. A bit more than the usual dose, but not lethal, Rebecca answered. I wanted to talk to him before he woke up. We have things we need to discuss. What do you mean? Evelyn's voice was trembling. Rebecca exhaled deeply. I was Robert's lover. For 6 months. Those words devastated Evelyn. Though she had known from reading the messages, hearing it directly was a completely different kind of pain. But that's not all, Rebecca continued. On the day of the accident, he was planning to end our relationship. He said he loved you. He was going to admit his mistake and confess everything to you. Evelyn collapsed into a chair. So you tried to harm him? No, Rebecca shook her head. The accident was my fault. We had a heated argument in the car, and he lost control of the steering. I got away with minor injuries, but I panicked and ran. Later, I came to the hospital because I was worried about his condition. But why give him drugs now? Because I need to tell him something. Tears welled up in Rebecca's eyes. I'm pregnant. With his child. Evelyn felt as if her world had stopped. She was at a loss for words and could only stare at Rebecca. I thought if he heard about this, he would leave you and be with me, Rebecca continued. But he chose you. And now, everything is ruined. Police sirens could be heard in the hallway. Sounds like they're here, Evelyn said quietly. Just know one thing, Rebecca quickly said. He always loved you. Right to the end. Police officers entered the room. Rebecca stood up without resistance. Amy knew, she said as she was leaving. She saw us together. At the shopping mall. That child kept quiet to protect her father. Evelyn watched wordlessly as Rebecca was taken away by the police. Her mind was full of confusion and shock. When she returned to the ICU, Amy was crying by Robert's bedside. The doctors were checking Robert's condition. He's regaining consciousness, Dr. Lynn said. We don't know what that woman was trying to do, but your husband is out of danger. Amy looked up at her mother. Mom. Her voice was trembling. I knew. About that woman. I'd seen her with Dad before. But Dad said to keep it a secret, so. Evelyn hugged her daughter tightly. None of this is your fault. Not at all. At that moment, Robert's fingers moved. He slowly opened his eyes and looked around in confusion. His gaze settled on Evelyn and Amy. Ev. His voice was hoarse. Amy. His voice was weak, and his throat was dry. Water. Evelyn automatically reached for the water pitcher and brought the straw to his lips. She had been this man's wife for 15 years. Taking care of him was like a reflex action ingrained in her body, even now that she knew of his betrayal. Thank you, Robert said after drinking a little water, looking at Evelyn with tired eyes. What? A traffic accident, Evelyn said matter-of-factly. 3 days ago. Confusion appeared in Robert's eyes. Then, as if memories were gradually returning, his expression began to change. Rebecca, is she? She's fine, Evelyn's voice was cold. She had minor injuries and ran away, leaving you behind. Amy silently stared at her father. Her eyes held a mixture of anger and sadness. Amy. Robert reached out to his daughter, but she took a step back. The police took her away, Evelyn continued about Rebecca. She's now being detained on suspicion of trying to drug you. What? Robert tried to sit up despite the pain. Don't move, Evelyn said quietly. Your body has sustained major damage. And, so has our family. A heavy silence enveloped the hospital room. Only the sound of nurses busily coming and going in the hallway could be heard. Ev, I can explain. I know everything, Evelyn interrupted him. I saw your messages. Rebecca told me everything. The 6-month affair. And her pregnancy, too. The color drained from Robert's face. Pregnant. He looked as if he hadn't known until then. You didn't know? Evelyn asked coldly. No, she. Robert stumbled over his words. Ev, let me explain. Dad, why did you do something like that? Amy suddenly spoke up. Her voice trembled with anger. Weren't we enough for you? Amy. Robert stared at his daughter, at a loss for words. Tears welled up in his eyes. Evelyn placed her hand on her daughter's shoulder. Amy, could you wait in the waiting room for a bit? But, Mom. Please, Evelyn's voice was gentle but firm. Amy reluctantly nodded and, after giving her father one last angry look, left the room. Left alone, Evelyn and Robert stared at each other for a long time. 15 years of marriage, countless memories, and now, destroyed trust before their eyes. Why? Evelyn finally asked. Her voice was calm, but deep pain was hidden beneath it. Robert closed his eyes. I won't make excuses, he said slowly. I was lost. The pressure of work, the weight of routine as time passed. Then Rebecca appeared. Was that all our 15 years of marriage was worth to you? Evelyn quietly asked. Something so easily discarded for a temporary whim. No, Robert said desperately. I always loved you. On the day of the accident, I went to tell Rebecca that our relationship was over. I was going to confess everything to you. How can I believe that now? Ev, please. Robert tried to grasp her hand, but Evelyn pulled away. You lied to Amy too, Evelyn continued. She saw you and Rebecca. And you asked your daughter to keep it a secret. You placed such a heavy burden on a 14-year-old child. Regret appeared on Robert's face. I had no idea she knew. When I ran into Amy that day, she didn't say anything. She was trying to protect you, tears welled up in Evelyn's eyes. Your daughter was far braver and more honest than you were. There was a knock at the door, and Detective Reed entered. Excuse me for interrupting, he said. Mr. Kennedy, how are you feeling? Not well, Robert answered weakly. I need to ask you some questions, the detective said. About the circumstances of the accident and your relationship with Rebecca Morrison. Evelyn stood up. I'll step out. Mrs. Kennedy, the detective stopped her. Actually, there's something I'd like you to know as well. New facts have come to light in our investigation of Ms. Morrison. Evelyn stopped. What is it? Ms. Morrison has shown similar patterns in the past, the detective said. Entering relationships with wealthy married men, claiming pregnancy, and demanding money. What? Robert said in surprise. Is she really pregnant? Evelyn asked. Medical tests haven't been done yet, but given her criminal record, it seems unlikely, the detective replied. She also appears to have mental health issues. She's received warnings for stalking behavior twice in the past. Evelyn and Robert were speechless. And the substance she tried to bring into the hospital room wasn't sleeping pills, but actually a dangerous amount of painkillers, the detective continued. This constitutes serious attempted murder. Evelyn leaned against the wall. She was trying to kill Robert. It appears so, the detective nodded. Ms. Morrison seems to have felt intense anger at being rejected. Numerous messages indicating her obsession with Mr. Kennedy have been found on her cell phone. Robert covered his face with his hands. I was such a fool. The detective gave them a sympathetic look. We'll conduct a more detailed interview later. You two probably need time to talk. He placed his card down and left the room. When they were alone again, a heavy silence filled the room. Ev, how could I ever be forgiven? Robert finally spoke. Evelyn gazed out the window. I don't know right now, she said quietly. You betrayed me. You put our family in danger. You made Amy lie. It's all my fault, Robert admitted. I need to apologize to Amy. And to you. Evelyn looked at him. I'm going to stay at my parents' house for a while. With Amy. When you've recovered, we'll talk about what to do next. Please. Robert said desperately. Don't give up on us. You're the one who gave up, Evelyn said sadly. You gave up on our marriage. As she headed for the door, Robert called after her. You and Amy are everything to me. Please believe that much at least. Evelyn turned around. Show me with actions, not just words, she said quietly. If you really love us. As she left the hospital room, Amy was waiting in the hallway. She was leaning against the wall, her eyes red and swollen. Mom, what's going to happen to us? She asked in a small voice. Evelyn embraced her daughter. I don't know, to be honest. But we'll get through this together. Is Dad not coming home anymore? That, time will tell, Evelyn answered. Right now, the most important thing is for Dad to recover. And we need some time too. Amy nodded silently. She looked up at her mother with an expression more mature than her years. Mom, if I had spoken up sooner. You did nothing wrong, Evelyn said firmly. Dad created this situation. You were very brave. You tried to protect him, and you tried to protect us. I'm proud of you. Mother and daughter left the hospital hand in hand. An uncertain future lay ahead of them, but they had each other. That was the most important thing now. As the trees in Boston turned golden, Evelyn stood by the window in Martha's house, watching fallen leaves dancing in the wind. 6 months had passed since the accident. People say time brings healing. Indeed, the pain of the wounds had eased, but they had not completely disappeared. Tea's ready, Martha called from the living room. Evelyn moved away from the window and returned to her sister's cozy living room. On the table were 2 cups and a letter. Another one. Evelyn picked up the letter. It was from Robert. The 3rd one this week, Martha said gently. He's really trying. Evelyn nodded silently. Since their separation, Robert had been sending letters every week. At first, they were full of apologies and regret, but gradually she could see changes in him. He had started going to counseling and was facing himself. He wrote about their memories and the emptiness of life without Evelyn and Amy. What happened to Rebecca? Martha asked. She received a 4-year prison sentence, Evelyn replied. A psychiatric evaluation diagnosed her with borderline personality disorder, but she was deemed legally responsible. And the pregnancy? It was false, Evelyn said matter-of-factly. Apparently, she had extorted money from 3 men using the same method. Martha took her sister's hand. How's Amy? She's doing well at school. She seems to be getting used to meeting with Robert on weekends, Evelyn smiled slightly. She's strong. Much stronger than I am. You're plenty strong yourself, Martha said kindly. So, what's your decision today? Evelyn exhaled deeply. Today, she intended to make a final decision about her future with Robert. I still don't know. Just then, the doorbell rang. That must be Amy, Martha stood up. However, when she opened the door, Robert was standing there. He looked thinner than before, with new wrinkles etched into his face. He held a small bouquet of flowers in his hand. May I come in? He asked hesitantly. Martha looked at Evelyn. She nodded quietly. I'll go make some coffee. Martha headed to the kitchen to give them time alone. Robert slowly sat down across from Evelyn. Did you read my letters? Yes, Evelyn answered. All of them. I wonder if you're ready to talk today, Robert said carefully. Evelyn gazed out the window. Over these 6 months, I've thought a lot. About our marriage, about trust, and about forgiveness. And a glimmer of hope lit up in Robert's eyes. I can't pretend nothing happened, Evelyn said slowly. But I also can't throw away 15 years of marriage. That means I think it's worth trying again, Evelyn looked into his eyes. But I have conditions. Complete honesty, continued counseling, and above all, making your relationship with Amy a priority. Tears welled up in Robert's eyes. Anything you say. I never want to lose you both again. We'll take it slowly, Evelyn said. First, come home just for weekends. We'll start from there. Robert took Evelyn's hand with gratitude. This time, she didn't pull away. At that moment, the door opened and Amy came in. She froze for a moment when she saw her father, but then gave a small smile. Dad, she said quietly. Amy, Robert stood up but hesitated, unsure how to approach her. After a moment's hesitation, Amy walked over to her father and awkwardly embraced him. Do your best, she said in a small voice. The three of them looked at each other. A long and difficult road lay ahead of them. But now, they had a chance for a new beginning. A chance to build genuine family bonds based on honesty and courage, even if imperfect. A quiet hope lit up in Evelyn's heart.